The Lord be with you. It is Tuesday, the 24th of February. No, it's Monday, the 24th of February. I know how dates work. It's Monday, the 24th of February. It's usually Tuesday when I stream. Let's be fair. And this is the ADHD Preacher's Workshop for March 2nd, 2025. I am the ADHD Preacher. Bring it to you hot and live from the Levant circa 30 AD. All of the freshest Bible beats, as it were. I am going to say out loud that I am feeling somewhat poorly today, as I have an intermittent stomach thing that has flared today of all days. It's not IBS, though, as far as I know. I don't know what it is. But every once in a while, I just have a slightly rotten day, and today is one of those days. So I'm going to try and give this its usual accustomed level of energy. And when that fails, I hope y'all will be patient with me. And then, subsequently, there's a slight chance that I will perk up over the process of doing this stream. And if that happens, I might also do the stream for March 9th. But I can't guarantee that, and I am otherwise it's going to be challenging because I will have some computer availability problems over that period of time. So we'll see how we do. But let's kick it off, as we generally do, with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father God, we ask your blessings on this reading of your word, on this time of contemplation of your will, on all those who are preparing to preach this coming Sunday, and all those who are preparing to hear this coming Sunday, on all the many who are speaking and listening around this country and around the world today. And we ask, Lord, that you bless your people with peace and patience, justice and kindness, righteousness and love, all to the greatest capacity that we can hold. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to you, O Lord, our God. Amen. Ooh, new format. We're trying this. I did this for another stream. We're trying this specifically because it might be helpful for grabbing social media friendly, not TikTok because we don't TikTok for reasons, but YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or whatever the kids are watching these days. So, you get more of my face and you get more, you get the screen at a reasonable size, I hope. March 2nd, 2025. This is the last Sunday in Ordinary Time. I'm going to have to change the color on the text next week. Coming soon to an Everywhere Near You, the season of Lent. I have some hope that, like Advent last year, I'm going to pull off a Lenten series of videos. We'll see. We'll see if that works. But yeah, no, March 2nd is going to be last Sunday in Ordinary Time, and then we'll dive into the wonderful world of Lent. But for now, let's finish out Ordinary Time strong. What do you got for us? Oh, see, because the last Sunday in Ordinary Time is also Transfiguration Sunday. And I'm curious, actually, are they doing 7th Sunday after the Epiphany, Transfiguration? Are they doing options? No, it's just Transfiguration Sunday. That's just what we're doing. Cool. That will be fun. Interpretation to follow. All right. Year C. Transfiguration Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. Moses has a shiny face. All right. I'm gonna stop interpreting. I'm going to stop interpreting, but I am also going to I did a stream on a slightly different topic a couple days ago in which I gave the text a dramatic turn. And I'm not going to overdo it, I think, but I am going to try and put a little mustard on it and give you some flavor. Shout out to Ben Brennan. Ben Brennan is a former boss of mine. Brennan Lee Mulligan I'm trying to put too much mustard on this. Exodus, the 34th chapter, the 29th through the 35th verses. Listen for God's word to you. Moses came down from Mount Sinai. As he came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant in his hand, Moses did not know that the skin of his face shone, because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses, the skin of his face was shining, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses spoke with them. Afterward, all the Israelites came near, and he gave them in commandment all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. But whenever Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would take the veil off until he came out. He would take the veil off until he came out. And when he came out, he told the Israelites what he had been commanded. The Israelites would see the face of Moses, that the skin of his face was shining, and Moses would put the veil on his face again until he went in to speak with him. Side effects may include Psalm 99, whole psalm, worship upon God's holy hill. The Lord is king. Let the peoples tremble. He sits enthroned upon the cherubim. Let the earth quake. The Lord is great in Zion. He is exalted over all the peoples. Let them praise your great and awesome name. Holy is he. Mighty King, lover of justice, you have established equity. You have executed justice and righteousness in Jacob. Extol the Lord our God. Worship at his footstool. Holy is he. Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel also was among those who called on his name. They cried to the Lord, and he answered them. He spoke to them in the pillar of cloud. They kept his decrees and the statutes that he gave them. O Lord our God, you answered them. You were a forgiving God to them, but an avenger of their wrongdoings. Extol the Lord our God, and worship at his holy mountain, for the Lord our God is holy. And we have to give up. We were doing a walk with Paul through his letter to the church at Corinth and his first letter to the church at Corinth, and now we're kicking on to his second letter to that congregation. 2 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, the 12th verse, through the 4th chapter, the 2nd. Since then we have such a hope, we act with complete frankness, not like Moses, who put a veil over his face to keep the people of Israel from gazing at the end of the glory that was being set aside. But their minds were hardened. Indeed, to this very day, when they hear the reading of the Old Covenant, the same veil is still there. It is not unveiled, since in Christ it is set aside. Indeed, to this very day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their minds. But when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And all of us, with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another, for this comes from the Lord, the Spirit. Therefore, since it is by God's mercy that we are engaged in this ministry, we do not lose heart. We have renounced the shameful, underhanded ways. We refuse to practice cunning or to falsify God's word. But by the open statement of the truth, we commend ourselves to the conscience of everyone in the sight of God. And then Luke 9, verses 28 to 36, with bonus verses. Jesus is transfigured on the mountain. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Suddenly they saw 2 men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking about his exodus, which he was about to fulfill in Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but as they awoke they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us set up 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not realizing what he was saying. While he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent, and in those days told no one any of the things they had seen. On the next day, when they had come down from the mountain, a great crowd met him. Just then a man from the crowd shouted, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son. He is my only child." Suddenly a spirit seizes him, and all at once he shrieks. It convulses him until he foams at the mouth. It mauls him and will scarcely leave him. I begged your disciples to cast it out, but they could not. Jesus answered, "You faithless and perverse generation, how much longer must I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." And while he was being brought forward, the demon dashed him to the ground in convulsions. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to his father. And all were astounded at the greatness of God. The word of the Lord. All right. Nice, crispy reading. Nice, quick. Didn't have to belabor. We get all the good stuff right up front. All right. I think for a change, there's nothing that I feel that strongly. I want somebody to track. I would like a counter somewhere. Someone to tell me the first time that I remember to paste without formatting when I'm doing the scriptures here. Because every time. I just think we don't need to clip anything. As is sometimes the case if I were preaching this, I don't know that I would. Often in general, if I'm given the option between more Bible and less Bible, I usually choose more Bible. I would consider not doing so with the second part of the Luke passage because it just doesn't seem all that well connected. It just doesn't plug in. And maybe a second reading will reveal to me pieces that I'm missing. But all right, let's get it started in here. Perhaps let's get it started in Ha. Okay. I'm gonna slightly adjust my camera angle there and see if that. All right. So, what's happening here? There's a lot going on in these passages, and we're gonna talk about it. Exodus 34:29-35 from the Common English Bible. Moses came down from Mount Sinai. As he came down from the mountain with the 2 covenant tablets in his hand, Moses didn't realize that the skin of his face shone brightly because he had been talking with God. The first aside, I had a possibly 5-minute argument with my wife about the use of the word shone. Shone is the past participle of to shine. And I just want to say I understand that language isn't evolving and ever changing, and shined is a believable, but I understand where I got it, because the Common English Bible, the one that's intended to be super accessible, right? The one that is intended to be sort of available for people and that it is not difficult to read and that doesn't have a lot of weird vocabulary. The Common English Bible uses shone. So it's possible that she would argue that my problem is that I should be saying shown, but then it's like the past participle of to show, and no. I shall retain my pretenses, which are not pretenses because they're authentic. Moses didn't realize that the skin of his face shone brightly because he had been talking with God. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw the skin of Moses' face shining brightly, they were afraid to come near him. So a little bit before this, I think, and I'd have to go back and check exactly where, there's a whole thing where Moses says, do I get to, encountering God? And God says, by the way, you need to not look at me in the face because you will die. So you can really only look at me as I go past, look at my back as I travel past. And the idea here, which is well attested in the ancient Near East, there are several people who address this. The idea here is that seeing the divine, being present with the divine, is so dramatic. It is so affective that it changes people. to be in the presence of God physically. And certainly in other parts of the ANE, the ancient Near East, and related cultural moments, the good example here is that this shows up frequently in Greek myth. If you'll all recall, there's a young woman named Semele who has a baby by Zeus. I think this is Hercules. And I think it's, yeah. But anyway, there's at least one woman who has a baby by Zeus who says, hey, Zeus, can I see you? And Zeus says, this is not a good idea. And she says, but I want to see the real you authentically. And Zeus says, okay. Yeah, and he appears before her in all his divine glory, and she explodes or catches fire or some other descriptor. Now I'm going to have to go find this passage. So the sort of the remarkable thing here is not the unremarkable thing is that being in the presence of the divine, being in the presence of a god or the god, is transformative, and seeing that God authentically all the way face to face kills people, just because the God is that big or intense or powerful. But being in God's presence and hearing God say, okay, here are the rules, Moses is transfigured. So that's when we say Transfiguration Sunday, this is the word. The figure is transed, the face is changed. And now I'm going to have to dig into figure in a bit later. So Aaron and all the Israelites saw the skin. They were afraid to come near him, but Moses called them closer. So Aaron and all the leaders of the community came back to him, and Moses spoke with them. After that, all the Israelites came near as well, and Moses commanded them everything that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. When Moses finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. And whenever Moses went into the Lord's presence to speak with him again, Moses would take the veil off until he came out again. When Moses came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see that the skin of Moses' face was shining brightly. So Moses would put the veil on his face again until the next time he went in to speak with the Lord. Very functional. Sweet. Moses taking care of his people. So this is fun. Psalm 99, Common English Bible. The Lord rules, the nations shake, he sits enthroned on the winged heavenly creatures, the earth quakes. The cherubim, which if you, like me, first encountered the word cherubim in the 1990 film Sister Act, you didn't really have a good vision of what we were talking about here. So there are figures. It is important to state out loud that the Hebrews don't have an idol. They don't have a physical god. Many of the other nations had gods, and then you'd have the one big statue, and that was the presence of the god, and then you would have like little statues that sort of linked back to the presence of the god. Israelites, Hebrews don't have that. What they do have is first a special box, and then later an altar, on which God's presence resides. And on this special box/altar, there are statues of winged heavenly creatures. And I, again, dive into film lore. If you happen to have seen the 1979 film Raiders of the Lost Ark, it might have been 80. The Ark of the Covenant is the box, the special box I just mentioned, and there are these statues of winged creatures, and God dwells on sort of between the winged creatures. So this is the image that you should have when he sits enthroned on the winged heavenly creatures. The vision, the physical vision that people would have had is that there was an altar and a box that had these winged heavenly creatures, and God dwelled on top of them. And this was a figure, a symbol of the actual heavenly creatures that God sat on, but God sort of rules over in the heavens. The Lord rules, the nations shake, he sits enthroned on the winged heavenly creatures, the earth quakes, the Lord is great in Zion, he is exalted over all the nations, let them thank your great and awesome name, he is holy. I am very frustrated by the fact that, and this happens in the Bible constantly, the person changes. So this person is saying, the Lord rules. He sits enthroned. The Lord is great in Zion. He is exalted over the nations. And then suddenly, let them thank your great and awesome name. So now I was saying how great the Lord was. Now I'm talking to the Lord and saying, let them, presumably the nations, possibly Zion, thank your great and awesome name, O Lord. And then bounce right back. He is holy. Strong King. I keep wanting to say Textus Receptus, and this is not right. Okay. Thanks, Montana Bible College. Yeah. Montana Bible. Thanks, ChatGPT. Okay. The languages I want. Okay, I'm gonna look this up later in a different spot, but just know that that MT is a particular. That is, if I recall correctly, that is the received. In Greek, we call it the Textus Receptus. This is the sort of primary reading, but it doesn't make sense. The sort of the majority report is a king's strength. It makes more sense if you say a king's strength who loves justice. No. Strong king. A strong king, perhaps a Melech Gadol, but hard to say, who loves justice. You are the one who established what is fair. You worked justice and righteousness in Jacob. Magnify the Lord our... So again, we're just going to bounce person. Strong king who loves justice. You are the one who established what is fair. You worked justice and righteousness in Jacob. Magnify the Lord our God. Bow low at his footstool. He is holy. Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel too among those who called on his name. They cried out to the Lord, and he himself answered them. He spoke to them from a pillar of cloud. They kept the laws and the rules God gave to them. Lord our God, you answered them. To them you were a God who forgives, but also the one who avenged their wrong deeds. Magnify the Lord our God. Bow low at his holy mountain, because the Lord our God is holy. I definitely ADHD'd out a moment there. Moses and Aaron were among his priests. Samuel too among those who called on his name. This is established earlier. They, Moses, Aaron, and Samuel probably, cried out to the Lord, and he himself answered them. He spoke to them from a pillar of cloud. Now, Moses and Aaron, he definitely spoke to from a pillar of cloud. Samuel never got the pillar of cloud treatment, so far as I know. So, I think better to say, Moses and Aaron were among his priests, Samuel too among those who called on his name. When they say they cried out to the Lord, it's those who called on his name, is a more just, fair reading. They cried out to the Lord, and he himself answered them. He spoke to them from a pillar of cloud. They, the Hebrews, kept the laws and the rules God gave to them. Lord our God, you answered them. To them you are a God who forgives, but also the one who avenged their wrong deeds. All of us keep that in mind. Magnify the Lord our God. I've talked about this, sure. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but magnify is from a Latin word magnus, that means great, and a verb that means to make. So to magnify something is to make it great or make it big, which I just love. Like, we needed a word later. We had this word magnify, make it big. And then later we needed a word for, okay, now we have this special tool that makes things big. What are we going to call it? How about a magnifying glass? What a cool little moment. 2 Corinthians 3:12 through 4:2. I hate, it's so frustrating when it crosses over chapters, because I read it and I get messed up. Okay. I said that I didn't need the rest of the chapter, and I was wrong. I need to know. You always, Paul is impossible to read in isolation. Like, every time you're just sitting there going, this is not helping. I need everything that he said. Yeah. 3-1. All right. Okay. Ooh, best value in digital Bible study. At me, Bible Gateway. I'm right here. Someday, y'all, I'm gonna be on the stream and be like, our sponsor today is Bible Gateway. Bible Gateway, your gateway to the Bible. Hire me to do your comms, Bible Gateway. Okay. 2 Corinthians 3, 1, 4, 2. Are we to are we starting to commend ourselves again? Are we, probably Paul and Timothy, starting to commend ourselves again? We don't need letters of introduction to you or from you like other people, do we? You are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by everyone. You show that you are Christ's letter delivered by us. You weren't written with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God. You weren't written on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. Paul is absolutely riffing on a whole thing here, where he's hearkening back over and over again to the Ten Commandments, to Moses' reception of the commandments from God. The whole chapter he's singing this song. This is the confidence that we have through Christ in the presence of God. It isn't that we ourselves are qualified to claim that anything came from us. No, our qualification is from God. He has qualified us as ministers of a new covenant, not based on what is written, but on the Spirit, because what is written kills, but the Spirit gives life. The ministry that brought death was carved in letters on stone tablets. It came with such glory that the Israelites couldn't look for long at Moses' face because his face was shining with glory, even though it was a fading glory. Won't the ministry of the Spirit be much more glorious? If the ministry that brought condemnation has glory, how much more glorious is the ministry that brings righteousness? In fact, what was glorious isn't glorious now because of the glory that is brighter. If the glory that fades away was glorious, how much more glorious is the one that lasts? So, since we have such a hope, we act with great confidence. We aren't like Moses, who used to put a veil over his face, so that the Israelites couldn't watch the end of what was fading away. But their minds were closed. Right up to the present day, the same veil remains when the Old Covenant is read. The veil is not removed, because it is taken away by Christ. Even today, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. But whenever someone turns back to the Lord, the veil is removed. The Lord is the Spirit, and where the Lord's Spirit is, there's freedom. All of us are looking with unveiled faces at the glory of the Lord as if we were looking in a mirror. We are being transformed into that same image from one degree of glory to the next degree of glory. This comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. And this is why we don't get discouraged, given that we received this ministry in the same way that we received God's mercy. Instead, we reject secrecy and shameful actions. We don't use deception, and we don't tamper with God's word. Instead, we commend ourselves to everyone's conscience in the sight of God by the public announcement of the truth. I got sidelined. I always wonder, because I did this professionally for a while. I always wonder if you guys catch it when I get lost. I'm pointing it out now to you because this is the ADHD Preacher's Workshop. This is not any old this is the ADHD Preacher's Workshop. So I'm going to call it out when I'm like, I just started wandering. And I started wandering today because Paul uses, again, midrash. If it shows up, if it gets repeated by the same person, especially in the same passage, there's something significant there. Paul loves this mirror image. And it's striking because Paul was called to ministry through a bout of blindness and prays later for a thorn to be removed from his flesh. And there's presumably it was sight related. So this, for Paul, the image of looking in a mirror is really powerful. All of us are looking with unveiled faces at the glory of the Lord as if we were looking in a mirror. We are being transformed into that same image from one degree of glory to the next degree of glory. This comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit, and this is why we don't get discouraged. Given that we received this ministry in the same way that we received God's mercy, instead, we reject secrecy and shameful actions. We don't use deception, and we don't tamper with God's word. Instead, we commend ourselves to everyone's conscience in the sight of God by the public announcement of the truth. Words to live by. All right. Luke 9, 28 to 43. I did it again. I need to know at least what the immediate preceding thing was that Jesus was up to. Because we were doing Luke 6 a bit ago, and so this can't, and that was the Sermon on the Mount, the Luke and Beatitudes. We cannot possibly. Yeah, Jesus called the 12 together. He gave them power. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. See them in groups. And what about you? Who do I say that I am? Okay. All right. Yeah, this is so I feel bad for Peter pretty much all the time because he gets screwed. He's like, I've described him in the past as the teacher's pet. He's so enthusiastic. He's so happy to be there, and he's so excited. And so he's just kind of a puppy all the time, just like, hey, Spike, can I? Spike, can I? And sometimes Jesus is like, yeah, like, good job, kid. And other times Jesus is like, shut up, you're. And I just feel bad for him. So Jesus is praying by himself. The disciples joined him, and he asked them, who do the crowd say that I am? And they gave some answers. And he said, what about you? Who do you say that I am? And Peter answers, the Messiah, the anointed one sent from God. And Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell this to anyone, which this is classic Luke, that like strict orders. Like I think Mark has this too. This is like Jesus conceals as long as possible that he's the Messiah. And he said the human one must suffer many things and be rejected and be killed and raised on the third day. Jesus said to everyone, all who want to come after me must say no to themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. All who want to save their lives will lose them, but all who lose their lives because of me will save them. What advantage do people have if they gain the whole world for themselves, yet perish or lose their lives? Whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, the human one will be ashamed of that person when he comes in his glory and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. I assure you that some standing here won't die before they see God's kingdom. And about 8 days after that speech, and this is where we're picking up the text again. About 8 days after Jesus said these things, he took Peter, John, and James. So again, teacher's pet, and John and James, the sons of Zebedee. And he went up on a mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face changed. And this is classic. Here it just says changed. It doesn't say how. There's no shining. It's just changed. And his clothes flashed white like lightning, and two men, Moses and Elijah, were talking with him. And they were clothed with heavenly splendor and spoke about Jesus' departure, which he would achieve in Jerusalem. And Peter and those with him were almost overcome by sleep, but they managed to stay awake and saw his glory as well as the two men with him. And as the two men were about to leave Jesus, as the two men, and this was not specific in the NRSV, so thank you, Common English. As the two men were about to leave Jesus, Peter said to him, Master, it's good that we're here. We should construct 3 shrines. I like that better than tents. That makes a lot more sense. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. But he didn't know what he was saying. Peter was still speaking when a cloud overshadowed them. As they entered the cloud, they were overcome with awe. And then a voice from the cloud said, This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. Even as the voice spoke, Jesus was found alone. They were speechless, and at that time told no one what they had seen. Which, by the way, this gets a mention because they didn't talk about it at the time or sort of soon subsequently, but it obviously entered the sort of canon of description later. And the next day, when Jesus, Peter, John, and James had come down from the mountain, a large crowd met Jesus. A man from the crowd shouted, Teacher, I beg you to take a look at my son, my only child. Look, a spirit seizes him, and without any warning, he screams. It shakes him and causes him to foam at the mouth. It tortures him and rarely leaves him alone. I begged your disciples to throw it out, but they couldn't. And Jesus answered, the dude, You faithless and crooked generation, how long will I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here. And while he was coming, the demon threw him down and shook him violently. Jesus spoke harshly to the unclean spirit, healed the child, and gave him back to his father. Everyone was overwhelmed by God's greatness, and while everyone was marveling at everything he was doing, Jesus did some other stuff. This is the end of the lectionary. All right, I've been saying I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it right now. It's happening right now. You guys are along for the ride. I'm so sorry. All right. Do I hate myself, my friends? Am I my own enemy? Yes. This is me setting up my database in such a way that later, if I need to change it, it won't be hellish. All right. Chapter start, verse start, chapter end, verse end. And by the way, if anyone would like to, so what I really should do, and I've never really figured this, out. What I really should do is use an actual database for this. I should not use an Excel sheet. There's a guy who wrote extensively about what a terrible idea what I'm about to do is. But let me get this started here, and then I'll figure out how to do SQL someday. All right, so we're here in Luke. We're in here. Let me zoom in for you so you can see what I'm up to. Luke. Chapter 9, 38 through 43. 9:38 through 9:43. All right, this is it. I'll put this up. I'll link this in the thing. So that I can database it. So this is it. This is me starting my database of passages in the scriptures that explicitly mention disability. First one. Child is the other one that's in here. It's very common that people are not asking for healing for themselves, but for their children. All right. Nice little side excursus there before I dive into the Greek. I'm right about the 40-minute mark, which is just about right. Yeah. So to talk through the interpretation that's going on here. When we talk about a seizure, we're pulling from the language of the scriptures at this time. Look, a spirit seizes him. He is seized. He's gripped by the spirit. And without warning, he screams, and it shakes him and causes him to foam at the mouth. This is a seizure. This is a very, very classic seizure. And there are a number of different things that could cause this. If, for example, somebody had been looking at Jesus while his clothes were shining like lightning, it's entirely plausible. That would have caused an epileptic seizure. There are a number of other things at the time and going on, like onto the present day, that could have caused this condition. The sort of dramatic one, and sometimes Jesus' healings are dramatic. Sometimes Jesus is like, come out of him, and like does a whole thing. Here, Jesus speaks harshly to the unclean spirit. He heals the child, not specified how at all, and he gives the kid back to his father. And again, this also falls in the list of passages that hit different. When I imagine my little baby, if he had seizures, that would be like the worst. That would be horrible. So I get it. But why is Jesus so mean? You faithless and crooked generation. How long will I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here. It's like, That just seems like a lot. What's Jesus up to here? All right, let's see what Jesus is up to. So I think if I were preaching, I would almost certainly be preaching the Transfiguration, and I would be preaching, sort of like I've done this sermon several times. This is not quite as bad as Christmas. The one thing that struck me unusually this time was the crowd reaction. Like Peter and those who were with him were almost overcome by sleep, but they managed to stay awake and saw his glory as well as the two men. And as the two men were about to leave Jesus, Peter said, "Master, it's good that we're here. We should construct 3 shrines, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." Forgiveness for Peter, but he didn't know what he was saying. And then the cloud overshadowed them. I was hiking on Mount Rainier once, up on the Skyline Trail, and a cloud rolled in. And you've seen clouds roll in before in the sky. It is a different thing when not a fog, but a cloud rolls over you. It just sort of, you're suddenly enveloped in this envelope of mist and grayness, and it just sort of overtakes you. And your visibility goes from, wow, I can see my house from here, to watch your step. Like 6 feet in front of you, you've lost visibility. This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him. And they were speechless, and at that time they told no one what they'd seen. And it's the same. So the differing reactions between Exodus and Luke are what's striking to me here. That the Israelites for Moses were scared. Aaron and the leaders were scared, and Moses was like, "Come talk to me." And then the Israelites. Whereas Peter sort of enthusiastically is like, "Let's build shrines. This is a holy place." I gotta pull my commentaries out from the basement because I feel like there's some really weird stuff going on in various points that I wish I understood better. All right. Paul is doing a thing about the veil. It's cute, but I don't need it. Let's do Luke 9:38. What is it? 30. What did we say? Luke 9:28 to 43. 28 to 43. And I don't even need the to 43. Again, I told, and it came past that after these things, say, Hemerai, about 8 days, about Hemerai Octo, after these words, the things that he'd just been saying, Paralabon. Yeah, he carried with him, he took with him, this is Molan Labe, this is to take Peter and John and Jacob and James. Yeah, boy, you want to talk about a linguistics WTF moment. Why is Jacob James? His name is Jacob. Is Jacobon. Why is he James? Why is that happening? And he, Anebe, went up. Anabino? Okay. All right. Onto the Oros, onto the mountain. Proseusaxthai. Proseusaxthai. In order that they might pray. In order that, to pray. It's just an infinitive. Jesus, took these kids onto the mountain to pray. And I wanted it to be subjunctive in order, like I wanted a purpose clause here in order that he might pray. But it's interestingly ambiguous. He took these cats onto the mountain to pray. He took with him Peter, John, and Jacob and went up. Oh, and went? I would have said, because paralobon here is Yeah, it's a participle. So really what we have here is, and taking Peter and John and Jacob, he went up onto the mountain to pray. That makes, yeah, okay. Taking with him Peter and John and Jacob, he went up to the mountain to pray. Got it. It's not like he needed Peter and James and John in order to pray. It's not like they were necessary to the praying process. He took them with him, but he went up to the mountain to pray. And it happened in the prayed, as he prayed, like, and to, yeah, okay, yeah. Sure, Your Majesty. All right, King James. And it happened that as he was praying, the fashion, sure. The eidos, the image of his prosopou, of his face, which it's fun. Prosopon is also the word that gets used for mask. And this is part of the reason that there's a whole question problem around the Apostles' Creed. One of them, God. When we say God in three persons, the Greek word prosopon is both a dramatic mask and also just your face, whereas persona in Latin is very distinctly your mask. I think I might have that reversed. Check myself. So the image of his prosopon, of his face, heteron, became different. This is the root of heterosexual, right? It's differentiated itself. It changed, and the hematismos, the raiment. Okay, his raiment became glistering white. Wow, glistering white. I have a whole essay about leukos because it was relevant at one point to a process that I was doing. So I have a whole thing about leukos and all of the different things that it means. But the core meaning is white. Is my width correct? Did I resize this? Not thinking. Hold on a moment. I did. I was not paying attention and I just popped it aside. All right. I wonder when I did that. All right. 5,000 fed. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. It was altered and his raiment was glistering white. Exastrapo. Exastrapto. Astrapto. Probably from aster, to lighten of dazzling objects. Aster, like star? Stranuo. Yeah, a star. See, so it became a starry white. Come on, guys. This is not... Don't introduce lightning where no lightning exists. I also don't trust them at all that this is actually from... whoa. Bell mounts. I wanted Lectionary. I'm going to turn that on as a... And they thought that was from a root astrapto, so I should just be able to do... just cut the X. Astrapto. Nope. First person singular of astrapto. Greek. Older form estrafo. Astrapto, and that's Greek. From Byzantine Greek astrapto, from ancient Greek astrapto. With ptifit, which is completely reasonable. To strike lightning, also figuratively to be very angry. See, because they're... Okay, so the Strong's is assuming that there's a lightning thing going on. or sorry, there's a star thing going on. Later language seems to imply that it is lightning. To glitter, to shine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Have fun. But whether it's lightning or a star, let us be very clear. It's very white. It's very leukos. And behold, there talked with him two men which were, yeah, okay. And check it out. Two men, Sunalalon, with him were talking. Sunalalon with him, sorry, talking together with him. Which were, and with, that's Hoti, which they were Moses and Elias, which is Elijah. Cool. And they Ophantes, they appeared, yeah, optanomai, they seemed, and doxe in glory. Yeah, they seemed, yeah, who appeared in glory. They seemed in glory, and they spake the exodon, the death. Exodus? Yeah, the Exodus. Yeah, that was, I liked actually the NRSV for the Exodus there. Which, okay. No, because if you're going to do Exodon as death, then Moses led the Israelites to death in the Promised Land. Yeah, exit, departure, depart from life to cease. Exodus. Yeah, the road out. Interesting. All right, I'll take it. Would not have called the, yes. So I like better the Exodus. Don't say the death, but the Exodus, his Exodus. Which Emelen, he should complete, accomplish, fill up in Jerusalem. Jerusalem. No, Jerusalem. There we go. In Jerusalem. And Peter, and when Peter saw and although they were heavy with sleep, but Peter and they that were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they were awake, they saw his glory, and the two men, they were bebare manoi, heavy, barewo, okay, hupno with sleep, diagregore santes. Nope. And when they were awake, from dia Gregorio, to be awake, Gregorio, to wake, to watch, to be vigilant. I did not know that. I have a close relative named Gregory, and I didn't know that. Probably akin to the base of Agara, with the idea of collecting one's faculties to raise, to rise up. Yeah, to rouse. Okay. Agiro. All right. Yeah, I don't trust you. You've betrayed me too often, too recently, Strongs. No, I want the ancient Greek. Why are you the inflection? Oh no, yeah, the inflection is the same, jerks. You just have the breathing. This is the problem with databases. Egro. From Proto-Hellenic, yeah, from to awake, cognate with Yagar. See the Sanskrit for more cognates. Okay. There just seems to be a word that means ager, to wake up. Cool. All right. Where are we at? Another 5. See how far we get. I'm powering through. I'm not getting lost. So this is to rise through, interestingly. When they were waking, because it's aorist active participle. Okay, when they were awoken. When they had awoken. Aorist is a weird tense in Greek, because it is mostly like a simple past, but it also has it's mostly a simple past. So had woken is actually wrong. When they woke up, once they woke up, waking up, they saw the doxon, the glory, his glory. So yeah, this is King James apparently, at least in this Luke translation, is not doing participles correctly. When they were awake is a lot to put on there. It's like the ones waking up saw the glory of him, and the two dudes, the sunestotas, the standing with him. Yeah, okay. All right. And it came to pass. We had a lot of Kai Agenito Day, like, and it happened. And it happened in the Diachorizestai. In their departure from him, Peter said to Jesus, Epistada, master, which is overseer? Overstander? And I presume, one who is raised up over me. Yeah, one who is established over me. One who stands over me. One who has been set up over me. Epistada, master. It is, oh man, it is beautiful. Yeah, it means good, but it means beautiful. Because agathos is like moral good, but kalos is physically beautiful. Physically good. Master, it is good. It is beautiful that we're here. It's beautiful for us to be here. Master, it is beautiful for us here to be. Yeah, it's beautiful for us to be here. And let's make skenos tabernacles. Okay, I like that. That tabernacles sits very well in the gap between the two translations of tent and shrine. That a tabernacle is sort of a holy tent. Let us build 3 tabernacles. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Not knowing what he said. So this is the moment where I actually really wish I had my commentaries out, because I think because the implication, the thing that he said that sounds stupid to me is, you realize these other 2 guys are dead, right? And Jesus will be shortly. It's not helpful for us to build shrines for them here. But I want to get some other commentary on that moment. While he thus spake, and speaking these things, he speaking these things. Yeah, so this is a genitive. Yes. This is a genitive absolute, which it's just good to see a genitive absolute. I miss the ablative absolute in Latin. I was thinking about this today. I just miss this other form that we get in these other languages. I miss it. Speaking these things, he, as he was speaking these things, with him speaking these things, there came a nephele, a cloud. I'm going to be bothered by that for a minute. And epeskiasen, and it overshadowed them. And they were fearful. Phobos. Phobethesan. In the Ekenus. as they entered into the into the cloud. Yeah. They were fearful in their overshadowed them, and they feared as they entered into the cloud. Okay, fine. Oh, I can do 2 more verses. I've got time. And the light, sorry, phone, sound, a voice. There came a voice. Man, Luke's having a time with the Geneto over here. And there came a voice from the Nephiles, from the cloud, saying, "This is the son of me, who I love spiritually. Listen to him." Akute autu. Listen to him. And so this is just another form of Ageneto. And when it had passed, in its passing, in the voice's passing, Jesus was found alone. And they kept it close. And they kept close, and to no one did they tell in those days, not any, what they'd seen, what they'd seen. Eorokasen. Yeah, it's the same orao to see. All right. Yeah, I think the sermon is yeah, I think the sermon is about listening to the glorious. Listening to Moses, listening to Jesus, and what it means to be in the presence of people touched by glory. Not bad. So it's your ADHD Preacher's Workshop for Sunday, March 2. I think I'm going to take a break, and then I actually am slightly delayed because somebody asked about it. I think I am going to do a sermon for this Sunday just passed, the March 23rd, February 23rd. So I think I might just take a few minutes of that, and then I may or may not come back and do the other reading that I need to do. If I don't see you before we enter into the season, have a profound beginning to your Lent, a time of self-denial and discipline and preparation. See if you can find those virtues anywhere in yourself. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate you. God bless. Good vibes. See you next time.